Let's turn to the advisory. And many Australians in their 30s and 40s are earning well but feel financially stuck. So how can people set new financial goals in the new financial year? Joining us is financial advisor Ben Graham-Nellor from Smart Happy Money. Ben, welcome to you.
Hi.
So,
thank you for having me.
We know cost of living pressures are exacerbating how people are feeling negatively, I guess, about their financial position at the moment. Why is that the case? Because I think you make the point there that essentially people are ticking the right boxes, doing the right things, just as far as perhaps earning good money, yet still feeling as though they're falling behind. Why is that?
Yeah, absolutely. It's something I see all the time with clients. There's a gap between earning well and but feeling that you're actually financially taken care of. People that come in and see us on really good wages, well above average wages, but are still living paycheck to paycheck. And what we sort of think, what I've sort of come to learn is that the gap is not always about cost of living. It's about how they're spending their money, and are they spending that money on the kind of life that they've chosen for themselves, or are they trying to fund a version of their life that they think looks successful but doesn't fulfill them and doesn't make them happy?
So what they need to stop paying attention to social media and perhaps employ some greater financial discipline, if you like.
Yeah, absolutely. The cost of living presents like a symptom, but the diagnosis is actually that people haven't ever really stopped to say, well, what do I actually want my money to do? They've usually just fallen into a particular kind of financial life, with the suburb that they live in, the car, the holidays, what they see on social media, like you say, and they check what people around them are doing, and that's not actually what makes them feel good. And when the spending doesn't reflect the values and your budget doesn't reflect what actually is important to you, no amount of more income is going to fix that problem.
That sounds almost as though you're becoming a bit of a life coach there. It's not just about finances, how to handle money, but what your goals are. So, I mean, how do you do that, just as far as figuring out what you should value?
Yeah, so I believe proper financial planning does borrow a lot from the world of therapy or life coaching, because money is emotional. There's just no escaping it. It has to come down to what you believe. So when we spend real time asking ourselves, what are the moments in our life that make us feel good? You know, what were we doing? Who were we with? What did it cost? And people usually can discover that the happiest moments, the things that make them feel the best, are actually pretty cheap. And maybe their most expensive habits are ones they don't feel very good about. And particularly if they get guilt involved in what they're spending their money on, which is a big problem when it comes to financial stress. But once you can see clearly, you can begin to change the way you spend. If you understand what actually is important to you, then you can start making sure that your money lines up with those beliefs.
Now, Ben, as we all know, the beginning of the year, we talk about New Year resolutions. Should the same apply for a new financial year? Do you need or should you have those financial goals?
Yeah, so I think a new financial year is a perfect time for new financial goals. You can do them around the proper new year in January, but January is usually a bit of a mess for most people, and goals go out the window pretty quick. So I usually encourage clients to use June 30, July 1 as the time to set those goals. And most financial goals that people do make are task-based. So they might say, let's pay off a mortgage by this time, or let's hit 500K in super by this time. And that's kind of fine to have those goals, but they're really the means to an end. What we need to do is set the goal around what the end is. So the goals that matter, and then connect to something that we actually want to feel. So the goal, rather than having $500,000 in super, it might be having security in retirement. You know, rather than having your mortgage paid off, it might be, I want to feel free with my money. So there's a bigger picture to consider, and then those financial goals that you set underneath those is how you're going to get there. So we want to see people set the goals that are genuinely theirs, not ones that they've seen online, not ones that they've read about. They want you to have the actual genuine goals for yourself. And when the goal is truly yours, you can feel it, and it's not really a sacrifice anymore to try and hit that goal.
Ben, as we know though, the goalposts often shift, don't they? Because let's face it, life gets in the way, and you need to adapt. What's the key there, just in terms of adapting?
Adapting is completely fine, and I think that's how you have to come into this. You can't sort of set that goal and say, well, this is set in stone, because circumstances do always change. And we also encourage people not to wait to set goals as well, because when they might be waiting for circumstances to change to be in a particular position where they think they can now set a goal and get there, like waiting for their mortgage to be smaller or wait for their kids to be older. But at that time, they're just wasting that time that they could be working towards whatever those goals are, and spending according to their values. And the cost of that's not just financial. And if we don't have some clear goals and a clear way to run our money, it can bring up this low-grade anxiety of feeling like it's just never enough.
Ben, I'm interested, do you come across couples perhaps, that have a goal of starting a family but feel as though, perhaps sadly, they simply can't afford it?
Yeah, absolutely. That does happen. That exact example has happened with clients and with friends of mine. And what I usually say as a parent myself is there's no really good time to start a family. It's always going to be expensive, and it's always going to throw a spanner into the works of everything else you've planned. But that's one of the reasons you have to keep those goals fluid and adjustable. So if you are starting a family, you do need to think about the kind of life you want to have with your kids, the kind of time you want to spend with them. And it might not be a goal that's financial. It might be that you need to be able to stay at home for longer, one of the parents, and look after that child. And that's okay too. You can make goals for anything, as long as they stick to your values and you can map out how they're going to work into the future. Cost of living is a really big stress for people, and particularly ones that are about to start a family, when they think, how are we going to afford this? But what I've found is that when people throw themselves in the deep end with that, they do figure it out and they do manage to set those goals and meet them.
So overall, what are perhaps the most common mistakes that people make, do you think?
I think waiting is probably the biggest one, and waiting to set the goals. I think now is the time, no matter where you are in your life, what your income is, what your superannuation balance is, now is the time to start setting those goals. And I think the best way to do that is to set some time aside and relax your way into it. We want goals, when they're being set, to be a part of self-reflection. And it's not always easy. It can be quite uncomfortable to reflect upon yourself. But we have to remember that you don't need to earn more to feel better about money. So that if that's stressing you out, because that almost never works. We need to be able to take a couple of deep breaths, get a pen, get some paper, and start writing down some things that we really value.